Okay, now we're recording. Okay, well, welcome everyone to this very impromptu 0 point middle of the fall autumn eclipses of 2025 on September 14th, in between the 7th and the 21st. So, yeah, very powerful moment we're in. As I've talked about before, each time we have, the eclipses come in twos. Occasionally we'll have 3 eclipses at a time. I forget the complete dynamic of which occurs for that. I need to review that at some point and keep it in my brain, but I can't hold that much in there. It's just too much. Anyway, so the eclipses, as a general rule, do come in twos, but when you're in that middle space, it really is that in-between point. And again, these eclipses, because they are in Virgo, that first one was at 0. Well, I'm sorry, not the first eclipse. The first moon that opened us up into this eclipse, the new moon on the 23rd of August, 0 Virgo. And the eclipse, the second eclipse coming up in a week, new moon solar eclipse at 29 Virgo. Again, bookending Virgo, 0 and 29. So we're really purifying everything about ourselves individually and collectively with pure detail. Virgo is all about the details. It's going to take us to our core from a detail standpoint. And this first eclipse on the 7th was in between that new moon at 0 degrees Virgo and the 29 Virgo. And the opposition, the sun was at 15. And of course, the moon itself was in Pisces. And of course, that's, our deep spiritual presence. It's kind of like just oceanic spiritual presence, I guess. But the sun was lighting up all of that and setting us up for this new moon, taking us into the Libra world point, which is in opposition to Saturn and Neptune, that are functioning between the gateway, the end of the zodiac Pisces, and the beginning of the zodiac of Aries. And as I've talked before, both of those planets just went into Aries, helping us begin the new dream this year. They gave us a taste of it. As mentioned in the last call, on September the 1st, right before we went into that eclipse last week, Saturn went Saturn has been retrograde out of Aries, but it dipped back into Pisces. And of course, Saturn is structure, and that's every kind of structure. A lot of astrologers, when they talk about it, they're only talking about, more things like for the greater world, financial systems, banking systems, educational systems, all the systems and those, of course, are structures. But Spirit takes me much deeper and says, go into the atomic and subatomic structures that make up everything in the cosmos. And that's a whole different journey of awareness. And most people are not in that space. Some astrologers are in that space, and they come from that depth of being, but a lot aren't there. And that's okay. There's no comparison, and we're certainly not better than or less than anybody just because we're discussing it in those terms. But we are invited to go to that level of awareness. And whether people are conscious of it or not, I feel like these eclipses are taking us to that. And so Saturn back in that 29th degree. Right now it's actually at it's somewhere like 29 to 28. It's in between those 2 degrees. But by the time it gets into next week, it will be at 28 degrees when the moon is at 29. But it's still all right there. And Saturn is going backwards for one last pass through everything we've ever been, collectively, individually, everything. I'm talking about all past lives. I'm talking about this is so big. I mean, when I was taken into how vast of what we're doing, the opposition point to this moon, of course, it's a new moon, and it's being eclipsed. This is the opposition point to the moon, because the moon is always with the sun, and that's in Virgo. So this is kind of like the sun and the moon are over there at 29 Virgo, but this opposition at 29 Pisces, there's no light here. It is the complete opposite to what's being created. So imagine that Saturn is right there in attendance. Just on the other side of this old reality that we've reintroduced with Saturn, as far as our structures and the way we perceive our world structurally, Neptune is still in Aries right now during this eclipse window. It is retrograding, but it's still in the new dream. We're just kind of coming back from 1 degree, and actually Neptune will go back to 0 degrees by next week when we have this the solar eclipse in Virgo. It's going to be at 0 right next to the opposition. But what's amazing about that is that, I mean, you're only talking about a couple degrees between Saturn and Neptune, but they're literally riding on either side of a division line between two realities. And in some ways, you don't really hear people discuss what we're doing in that particular way. But that is a big deal, because 0 Aries is primordial awareness. It is the beginning of everything in the zodiac. And Neptune is going to be sitting at that 0 degree all the way through October the 22nd. And that's when Neptune goes ahead and backs into Pisces. So literally for a month, Neptune is going to be at 0 Aries. And so that's basically a month of sitting in the complete duality of what's been created in the world of form all throughout time. Because Saturn is, again, in the old world, but Neptune is in the new world, kind of retrograding back over the places where we've been creating. But it's literally putting us in primordial awareness for a month. 0 degrees Aries. How am I here in the world? And I think that this is going to be a month-long place, as far as Neptune is concerned, of creating. And of course, we're looking backwards. It's not looking forwards. It's in the new world, but we're still in a backward review because it's retrograde before coming back. So we're going to be sitting in this 0 degree primordial awareness and feeling into what we want to create. One last time before Neptune gets back into Pisces to finish clearing out all previous realities up to this particular point. Again, Neptune has not been in Aries for 160 years, back like 1860, I think it was, somewhere in there, 61 through 5. So when Neptune goes back in, Saturn will be back to 26 degrees. So they're going to be about 4 degrees away from each other. That's close enough that they are in high workability. So they're in those last degrees, and Neptune is going to be at that anaretic degree of Pisces. That's that really challenging degree. It's lots of endings, and of course Neptune is delusion, it's the dream, it's both sides of it, both sides of the coin. And it's going to be sitting at the 29th degree all the way through its time period. As a matter of fact, it never leaves the 29th degree. I forget exactly where it's at. I think it only gets to like maybe 29 and 20 or something. But it goes direct on December the 10th. So between, November 22 and I want to say it's January 26, yeah. So for those, that's going to be, November, for 3 months, Neptune is going to be at that 29th degree. That's going to be a very challenging time to have that and Saturn both. I think this is going to be really where we go into the collective underbelly, as it were. Because while those planets are in those placements, Pluto is still at the beginning of Aquarius, 2 to 3 degrees in there. And again, it's in a positive framework overall, because it's more of a sextile energy, which is kind of workable, or at least with Neptune it is. Saturn has kind of moved away. But it's an out-of-sign sextile, so it's not going to be as harmonious, I don't believe. I think it's the kind of rule of thumb when you have an out-of-sign aspect. So Pluto, of course, is transformation. And then, of course, in addition to that, you have back in, where are we at? Oh, yeah. We have Uranus that has just gone back into retrograde. Oh, shoot. I didn't put my cursor where I should have. I'm going to have to go back and find where I was. Okay, here we go. Let me find. Okay, so Uranus is going to go back retrograding. It's currently in Gemini, so it's at the beginning that 0 degrees Gemini. It's in the Pleiades, so all the Pleiadian energy is really working with this in a very positive way through download. It's right next to Sedna, and of course both of them are retrograde together. But Uranus is going to go back into Taurus on November the 8th. So it's going to be around, just right after Neptune goes back into Pisces. So at that point, they are going to be in a workable trine on the other side. So Pluto's going to be on one side, Uranus is on the other. So it puts them in the middle of, that workable yod. And so Uranus, retrograding back in Taurus, Taurus is grounded Earth. So I think when Uranus gets back into Taurus at the 29th degree, so about, November 8th, it's going to be sitting on that degree, let's see, all through maybe like November the 28th. So it's going to be about 3 weeks in there at 29 degrees of Taurus. I think Uranus is shocking stuff. It's shaking. You could potentially have a lot of, earthquake time potentials right there. Even really all the way back to the time it stations direct. It will not station direct until February the 10th. And that's interesting because it's not going to move back into Gemini like Neptune and Saturn will. Neptune and Saturn will both be back in Aries by February the 13th, I believe it is. But Uranus is just going direct by the time both of them enter back into Aries. So, and the fact it's going to be at the end of Taurus, really, I think, and that's only like 2.5 degrees. That's still pretty close to 29 degrees of Taurus. I think we're going to have a lot of volatility between now and then whenever it gets back into Gemini, and it doesn't get back into Gemini until April 25th of next year. And interestingly enough, Venus is right there with Uranus when it goes back into Gemini. There's no mistaking with that. Interestingly enough, here's the Einstein asteroid is also in attendance. So I don't think that's a mistake. And also Priapus, which is the moon's perigee, which is in opposition to Lilith, goes into Gemini just like a week later. And so that represents more of the divine feminine with regards to the moon pathways and things we're dealing with the emotional body. I think it's divine masculine energy. So, and again, that doesn't happen until May the 1st. So we're really I mean, that will help, I think, stabilize, the shocking energies. But, I mean, being back in the Earth sign of Taurus, Uranus back there, I think it's just really going to be plaguing all the way through April of next year. And, of course, it will be aspecting Uranus and Neptune and Saturn as it go back and forth between, that window of the alpha mega point, Pisces and Aries, part of our realities. And Uranus is, I think, going to shake it up. Not in a bad way. I mean, it's sextiling, but between both of, or all three of those signs waddling back and forth at different time periods, they'll be out of sign sextiling for a lot of those points. And so I don't think that energy is going to be as harmonious. I do think it's workable, but it's one of the most powerful energies that we're working with. So back up to this eclipse energy. Let me go back up to here. What else was I looking at with this in the chart? There were so many things. I mean, when I just look through this. But yes, I mean, at the end of Pisces, there's not a lot really that we're attending with it. I mean, the North Node is, going backwards. Again, Nessus is with the North Node. So I do think there's going to be a lot of review with regards to abuses. And again, that's individual and collective. But it's working with the North Node. I mean, Nessus is just right there on the node. I'm trying to remember if it... let me see, where's it at? Sheet when I don't put the cursor on this because it puts me somewhere else in the sheet entirely. Okay, here we go. So Nessus is going back with the node, but the node does accelerate past, faster than the Nessus Centaur. They did actually cross over on. Actually, when Nessus stationed retrogrades, when the North Node met up with it at 20-21 degrees of Pisces, and that was back, June 24th or 25th. So we really have had for the last, couple of months a lot of discussion with regards to abuse of power, abuse of, sexual stuff. I mean, all the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff and Epstein. It's almost like, will this ever end? And I don't know. I mean, obviously it will, but as the North Node moves away from Nessus, that's not going to, at least it'll be about 5 degrees away from Nessus at the end of this year. So hopefully, as far as what we're doing going forward, and actually it happens as Nessus stations direct. So. So it's going through that whole separation, between now and the 1st of December. And that's very active in, I think, the process of what we are doing as a collective to shift our awareness on who we are, but also taking us back into the core. And so let's see, what else do we have? All right, so with this moon, so the 0 point here, I was trying to remember what else was coming across this. The Lilith asteroid, and it's approaching Sheriklo, and it was only 3 degrees away from it during the first eclipse. By the time we get to the eclipse next week, it's only going to be the next degree over. And Lilith will station direct, though, just right next to Sheriklo. I don't think it doesn't ever cross Sheriklo, but they do come together. And when that's happening, Lilith is representing, that part of us that, jilted lover, you got the whole Adam and Eve world, and Lilith should have been the one with Adam, but that's not the way it played out. But Sheriklo, Chiron's wife, is that healing energy, and she really does represent the highest feminine capacity, I think, of healing energy. I mean, she really has stepped, I think, into her power, and to have that Lilith energy there together, I don't think that's a coincidence. And they're together at their closest, I think, from the beginning of this eclipse coming up next week on the 21st, down for like 2 weeks until Lilith goes direct. So I think that's going to be a thing with some energy we're working with, after this eclipse. And then, let's see, Pallas Athena is approaching Pluto, but she's not really that close. And then by the time she gets, let me see, I think the middle of October, she'll be close to Pluto when Pluto's going direct. But, and again, that's all at the beginning of Aquarian energy. So I think Pallas Athena is really working with all of us as, a balanced justice energy. So it's transformational justice with Pluto. I think she's working with the collective. Of course, that's Aquarius. Yeah, and so you've got the Lilith and Cheroklo energy also in Aquarius, but they're at 17, 18 degrees. So, and you get that, and that energy, Lilith and Cheroklo, is semi-sextiling Nessus and the nodes. So those are not necessarily harmonious energy. They don't see each other a lot, I think, because I think most astrologers say 30 degrees, but it creates a friction. And so I think that of course we'll have healing with abuse of power because, Cheroklo is attending that, and then, Lilith, who was, shunned. I mean, and that represents sexual usually. So still a lot of things regarding sex misabuse. But the fact it's happening with these eclipses and the North Node in attendance, I think that's really helping take us into healing energies individually and collectively. So I think that, and it's another reason why this particular 0 point energy here is being activated, because Lilith and Cheroklo are coming together during this eclipse time. So I think that's a really powerful point that I wanted to come forth with that. Let's see, what else was there? The what's that? Oh, it's Hana. Of course, Tholos and Quoror. Again, these are Tholos, a centaur, way on out there, and Quoror. It's really kind of more cosmic consciousness kind of stuff that's in Capricorn, and it's, I think, taking us into a deeper healing capacity, like cosmic healing in any area of your chart with that. I had so many things that just was popping up to me earlier, and I was like, ew. Oh yes, and then I talked about this a little last week, but this middle point, I think I may have mentioned it in the last week's call, but this 3-eye Atlas comet is just going right down through Scorpio right now. And this middle point, the Black Moon Lilith average, is literally just 2 away from it, and it's right next to the Narcissus Centaur. So anyone that is expressing, and this can be people in your life, it can be people, political world leaders, there's so much just rampant narcissism that I think is, people are expressing, and it's just not pretty. But that's being accessed immediately. I mean, it's like literally within 2 degrees of this interstellar comet, 3-eye Atlas, which is retrograding back to the zodiac. It is in the middle of Pisces, and it's right on this. It's on the 15 degree Scorpio world point. So again, Scorpio and its lower function, I mean, it's all the deep, dark, hidden sexual energy. It's lies. It's manipulation. It's just really not very nice. I mean, it doesn't always have to be bad. I mean, in a higher expression, I think Scorpio, really can take you to your core. But if you've not been using the energy well, you can certainly get stung by the stinger. And I think that's what's going to happen to a lot of people. And the fact that this Narcissus is only 2 degrees away from the Scorpio world point, I think any public narcissist, anyone expressing themselves in that dark function, is really going to be affected by this. Now, what's interesting here, though, too, this has potential for positive energy flow because the trine to last week's full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces is sitting on that world Scorpio point exact. It was 1523 Pisces. But that is quincunxing energy. No, I'm sorry, that's trining energy. Trining for Pisces. That's right. Quincunx. Yeah, sorry. At first I thought it was quincunxing, which is rough energy. But no. So that's flowing energy to that moon. And that point is really working with this 3i Atlas interstellar comet to, I think, soften people's awakening to cosmic awareness is the way I'm feeling into it, the way Spirit's presenting it to me. And why am I so aware of it? My Jonathan Murray and Johnny asteroids and the Nikola Tesla asteroids are sitting there right there with it. And Juno of divine partnership in its highest function. To have all of those things together. And, of course, Juno, representing partnership, it represents any and all type of partnership, really. If it's in lower function, it's not been so great. But Juno is also on that full moon, May 12th, 22 degree. And that's where it was during the eclipse last week. The 0 point of it right now is at 25 degrees Scorpio. So if you have planets at later Scorpio, those things can make it really activated right now. But by the time we get to the eclipse next week, Juno will be sitting within 2 degrees of the sextile to that new moon. And that's a really, that's a workable energy. And I think it's going to help people, find a way to deal with, positive partnershiping. Because, and again, that's, that eclipse is at 29 Virgo. So it's 29 degrees. It is anaretic. But because it's sextiling, I think it's going to be more positive energy. It does not mean that you won't have a lot of blow-ups. But again, you don't have new beginnings without the death. It is a constant death and rebirth process. It was interesting. I had shared that post that I had emailed to all of y'all in the email today. I'd showed it on Facebook, and I had thanked the woman that wrote it, and there was a couple of comments. And one woman had, actually I guess I commented on the post where it got shared in one of the astrological groups. And one woman had come through. I said something about it being a very auspicious time. And she said, well, auspicious isn't the word I would use necessarily for it. And I thought, well, it depends on where you are. What are you creating? If you're in a space of fear and you're looking at it just in the old view of astrology, and you're looking at it from the definition of, oh, this is going to break apart, it's going to be awful. Well, many times you have to have the awful, you have to have the ashes, you have to have the disintegration before you can have any birth. I mean, we're in a constant death rebirth process. In truth, every nanosecond of every existence of every human being is constantly a death and rebirth experience. But we're not taught that. We don't feel into that whole vastness of life and what it looks like. I mean, we just don't. And because we don't perceive, life to be in that totality, we sometimes, I think, look at our lives in a very limiting way because, we don't think about it. And But if you look at everything as a death and rebirth, and you stay in the more positive aspect, then I do think we'll create the more positive aspect, because life is, according to who you read, a reflection. And the reflection is always about doing the inner journey work. It's about shifting ourselves. All of the deep stuff is what's coming up for this right now. And, 29 Virgo opposition, 29 Pisces, it doesn't get deeper and darker than 29 Pisces. But they always say it's darkest before the dawn. 29 Pisces, the end of the zodiac. It's the end of the line before crossing over into the new, birth of Aries. So I do think that this 29th degree, and of course it's the opposition to this upcoming moon, I think it really is taking people to just the deepest, darkest place of their Piscean selves. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's also oceanic presence. Pisces, water, that's oceanic. It's also cosmic. So, if you're going into deep transcendental meditation work and you're attempting to do soul retrieval, if you're still, we're always doing it as long as we're here in this in this 3D reality and we're in these physical bodies and everything else, you're always doing some sort of soul retrieval. Because, that's the name of the game. We're enlightening ourselves. We're trying to release the dark density, that we came in with. And, that's why we're here. We come in to do this. Woohoo! But, this really is a powerful release time, because the new moon solar eclipse, the eclipse can eclipse all of this density out, is what I think, because the opposition point is in Pisces. So that's not a mistake. And the fact that Saturn is attending it, Saturn represents all of our structures. It also represents all of our past lives. It represents the totality of everything that has made us up as an existence over time. So let that sit for a little bit. And the fact that it's in the opposition of that sun and the moon, that basically is no birthing happens. The womb it's dark there. It's like this whole, empty space. It's really where we birth everything, but it's also where everything can be released. It's also where we have, I think, the purest renewal. And I've talked about this a lot too, that we've been in an individual and collective bardo state for quite some time. I think this really is this new moon solar eclipse next week. I think it's the penultimate bardo state. The opposition is the last point of the entire zodiac. Again, that's individual and collective. How many times do we have a new moon solar eclipse operating at 29 Virgo Pisces? It's the end, final degree of the axis of the old world before going into the new. And that's one reason I've been talking about, this set of eclipses is setting up the new beginnings, but we have to go through the final endings to get into the new. And you have to go do the deep dive. It's like, Judith always used to talk to us, you can't give away something you don't own. And I think this eclipse portal, and again, they last for 6 months, I think this is going to take people into all of their caca. Kicking and screaming into all the stuff they don't want to deal with. And if you don't want to work with this energy consciously, your soul will take you there. We're not getting out of it. That's just, we came here to do this in the physical body. And it really is kind of like our individual and collective resurrection moment. Imagine Jesus having to go into a cave. I'm not saying that we're going to come out the other end and, we're going to be all the Son of God and purified and be doing all these miracles. I mean, we do have capacity to create the miraculous and higher function of things. And I think that there are people on the planet operating in much higher frequencies that are creating those things. I mean, you have people that set up in the Himalayas and go up into these portals, and they have cleared out so much of the density on so many soul levels that they are creating some very miraculous energetics for themselves. But that's really what this next eclipse is. It's the portal that opens us up for it. But again, it's 6 months. So not everything happens overnight. Not everything's going to happen on that eclipse. But I think anything that's on borderline, I think this eclipse is really going to be like a huge release point. Again, new moons are beginnings, but I also think because it's at the 29th anerotic degree, there's potentially a lot of death that's going to go in the physical. And we're just going to have to see how it plays out. The other thing that's really, I think, potently making this eclipse a vast energy event is the fact that it is squaring the galactic center. So squaring is as a general rule, it's workable energy, but usually squares bring challenges. And it's right in between, a conjunction and opposition. So it's not necessarily flowing energy, but it's going to create a way to work with the galactic center to get us where we want to go. The fact that it is at a major aspect to the galactic center means we're going to get a download. The download, depending on where it fits in your chart, and it's going to depend on where you are in soul progression. And obviously, everyone's chart's unique, and depends on where the other transits are happening and hitting things. But even though it's a square, and those are usually challenging energies, it's still workable to the galactic center. I mean, that is the center of our universe, of our solar system, the Milky Way. So a lot of big downloads with the next, in a week. And the fact that Varda, I didn't even notice that. Varda is going direct today on this particular point. And she's on the galactic center. So the fact that she's there in this still point, I think, is like a big deal. Varda, of course, is one of the trans-Neptunian dwarf planets. I think she really, I think, is responsible for deep cosmic awareness. I think she represents a lot of divine creation. In fact, she's sitting on the galactic center in this still point of the eclipses. I think that's a big deal. Vesta has just entered 0 degrees of Sagittarius, coming out of Scorpio. So, Vesta is hearth and home energy. And so I think the fact that she's crossed over at this 0 point into Sagittarius, that's a much more, I think, fun-loving energy. It represents, I think, more like harmony with our fellow people, our fellow man. And I think that the fact, Vesta's right there at 0 degrees helps us envision a new beginning of our home, how we envision a home, how to make a home, and so on and so forth. And of course, my 2 asteroids, Johnny and Jonathan Murray, are right there with Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla, free energy. Nikola enters 0 degrees on the 18th in 4 days in Sagittarius. I think that is very indicative of free energy awareness, and it happens right here at the eclipse. So I think that's a big deal. And the fact that 0 degrees Sagittarius is trining energy to 0 degrees Aries, that is working with Saturn and Neptune in creating the new dream. So Vesta going into Sagittarius right here is working with Neptune exact in trine, and I think that's a really good positive sign for creating the way we perceive our home to be in the future. Let's see, what else did I see through here? It's decided to auto-save, so it's frozen. What else was here? Oh, Estrella is going across the Great Attractor. So, I mean, Estrella really represents, I think, justice and balance in the world, healing, presence. And the fact she's on the Great Attractor, I think, and again, that's another power, spot in the cosmos where we get downloads of things. I mean, I don't think that's a mistake that she's sitting right there at this midpoint of the eclipse. And again, that's at the 15-degree point. So it's, I forget what it's aspecting. I wish this sheet had my clickables like I want. When I present this thing, I'm going to ask, for clickable data, where if you click on something, it'll show all aspects, it'll show all definitions, it'll show everything. Okay. And then what else was there that I had seen? Oh, so oscillating Lilith. I talked about, the oscillation Lilith vortex. And, Lilith is always going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth every month. And during this midpoint, she stationed direct yesterday on the 13th. So she's really just coming out of that station. So she's at a stillness point. I mean, it's just a point. She doesn't move. But in our relation to her, she represents, she's the moon's apogee, which is the farthest point from the Earth of the moon's orbit. So I feel like she is the divine feminine as a representation. She's in Libra. So she's in a place where we're balancing. She's not in Scorpio. She's been going in and out of Scorpio and Libra back and forth, and even in Sagittarius. But for this eclipse series, she's been at this first part in Libra, helping us to rebalance. For the eclipse last week, she was at 29 Libra. So that was kind of anoretic, but she's been on a sharp retrograde to take us back to 21 degrees of Libra, and she met Mars 2 days ago, or Mars met that point. Mars will meet this point again tomorrow, after this still point of the eclipse. The fact that Mars is in attendance and has two major aspects, but basically Mars is just sitting with oscillating Lilith for basically a week, over a week really, of the energy. Also attending that only 2 degrees over is Clotho of Fate. Clotho is weaving new beginnings. I don't think that's a mistake either. Again, Clotho is a transiting asteroid, but between those fates, they assist us in bringing forth, beginnings for ourselves individually and collectively. And, the fact that Clotho is right there as Venus or as Lilith stations direct in oscillation with Mars, that gives us action. So it's fated action with beginnings with the divine feminine, and it's in Libra. And again, that's balancing. It's balancing energy, and so I think it's positive. Now I will say that as far as the way the energies of these eclipses has worked, the last eclipse was a quincunx to the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees. So the quincunxes are more challenging energies, creating more stress patterns. And then the next one will be a semi-sextile, and Mars is going to be at that semi-sextile. So I think Mars will be in a challenging energy point. But Mars is going to be right there before going into zero Scorpio, literally the next day after the next eclipse. So because that's happening, I think Mars will then go through creating movements and activating everything through Scorpio just right after this eclipse. And I think that's a really big deal. And I did it again. I hit the wrong. Okay, I almost caught back up. Okay. Mars is gonna provide action to all of these things that have been accessed in Scorpio that I've discussed. Between the Narcissus Centaur, the Black Moon Lilith average right there on the 3-eye Atlas, the trine to that full moon lunar eclipse last week, the sextile which is coming up on the next eclipse, Juno in Pisces, or I'm sorry, Scorpio. All of those things have accessed that full moon part of 22 degrees Scorpio on May the 12th. So I think that Mars now is going to give action to anything that got activated during that time period. And it's going to happen, let me see, Mars is not going to leave Scorpio until November the 3rd or November 2nd. Actually, about the 3rd, I guess. So all of October, November, well, October, really, it is going to be processing all of this. So for the next 6 weeks, Mars going through Scorpio is really going to give action to digging up all of these lies, to all the stuff. Mars is going to cross over this 3-eye Atlas comet on October the 1st or 2nd. That's going to give it an interstellar cosmic awareness. I mean, again, this thing comes from outside our solar system. It's only the third object that's come through. I think one did it in 2017. The Almira, I forget how you pronounce that other one. I think it was in 2019. But again, I mean, this is, I mean, they're looking at this as a big, big deal. So, and again, that's going to be exactly on my Juno of partnering. All kinds of partnering, cosmic partnering. With Mars right on top of it, I don't know what that's going to look like. Am I going to start partnering with Martians or Pleiadians or Arcturians? I don't know. Again, cosmic awareness. I have no idea what this is going to mean, but that's the beginning of October when Mars meets that. And Mars will have just come across Haumea a week after the eclipse. Well, about 4 days after, actually. Haumea, again, births, islands. It births, I mean, you've got the Rapa Nui on all that stuff going on. I mean, there's just a lot happening. And then by the time we get into October, Mercury is going to go across all those areas, and it's going to create awareness as far as communication. And Mars and Mercury are going to meet up in Scorpio just past the world point on October the 19th. So 2 months from now, we're going to have Mars of action and Mercury of communication together just right past the Scorpio world point. And it's doing it within 2 degrees of the Narcissus Centaur. So I really think you're going to see action and communication regarding all sorts of narcissism, which is also next to the Black Moon Lilith average. And again, that's just the average points. I mean, I'm not sure how much credence I give to that now that I observe Lilith through the oscillation. But as they go back and forth, they're still activating the Lilith oscillation. And Mercury is going to meet the Lilith oscillation on that 3-eye Atlas path directly on October the 8th. This is a lot of energy going on. The sun is going to meet that path on October the 20th. October is going to just blow up, I think, with everything. And the sun coming through Scorpio at that time, it's going to light it all up. And so the rest of this year, I think after these eclipses, it's going to really speed up. You're going to see a lot of action, a lot of energy happen. And again, I mean, this is like the dynamics of the skies. But as far as where we're at in the still point, though, the 3-eye Atlas comet, the interstellar cosmic awareness is on that Scorpio world point in the middle. So if you've got a lot of stuff going on in Scorpio, or if you know the angles to those things, if it's within, I would say within 5 degrees of that 15 degrees, so like that middle decan, which is like 10 to 20 degrees of any of the signs, you're going to have some sort of aspect. It'll either be semi-sextile, sextile, square, trine, quincunx, one of those, or even an opposition point towards Scorpio. So again, that's if you know those things. You're going to have cosmic aspecting to it. So let me see if there's anything else in this midpoint that I was. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. So, of course, here we are. So this midpoint that we're in, the sun actually is attending this midpoint in Virgo, and the sun is meeting Mercury like yesterday and today in this midpoint energy. That's not a mistake. So, the sun, who we are, how we express ourselves as pure isness, with Mercury, communication, is working together. It just happens to be on my Pluto right now in the eclipse energy. You can't make this up. It's also right next to the South Node, the transiting South Node. So this is going to work with our individual and collective past. The South Node, again, in people's charts, it's all of the gifts you came in with, but it's also the baggage, it's all the stuff. The sun is lighting that all up. So if you have anything in the middle of Virgo, and again, this is interesting, the middle point just happens to be in the middle of Virgo on the 14th. And the South Node is right there at the 18th degree. And what's funny, my last name, Bray, is crossing the South Node tomorrow. So I guess I'm attending all of this. I guess that's why I can talk about all this. I don't know. And the Ison comet, Centaur, is right next to my name. So, again, this is all activating in Virgo right now. But the fact the sun is there, Mercury is there, the South Node is there, this is all about working to release our past, whatever that is. And again, last week we had the opposition to the full moon at 15 degrees of Virgo. And, the fact that we've got the sun and the Mercury here now together with all this is leading us to the release point of the new moon eclipse. Although it's new, it's creating the new, it's still creating release because of everything we've done in since I think the 23rd of August. You can't have new beginnings without the endings, and you can't give away something you don't own. Okay, and another point with this, and she brought it up with this, I've read several people with this too. Right now, in the middle part of this, I didn't even notice this before. Venus has been going through Leo during this eclipse time period. Venus, for the 23rd, was basically just on the other side of Leo, but it was entering Leo at that moon on August the 23rd. And so Venus is what we love, how we value, what we love, value the who we love, what we love, the material world, finances, all these things. But Venus coming through last week was on the world point of Leo at 15 degrees, exactly on the quincunx to that full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. So that was all about working energy, probably challenging energy depending on what's happening with people, of what you love and value. It was quincunxing that lunar moon eclipse. That's a lot of releasing with Venus. Venus is now at 24 degrees of Leo. Right next to Venus is the Judith asteroid. You can't make this up. So Judith is attending Venus here with us, and she's part of all this. And three degrees away from Judith, just two actually, is my name, the full name, Jonathan Cox asteroid, attending Venus with Judith. That's so funny. And Lachesis of Fate is here too, and the Gregory asteroid. So, and those are all attending the semi-sextile of the moon next week. So again, it's all happening, before Venus goes into Virgo. Now, when Venus goes into Virgo, that's going to happen on the 19th. She'll be at like 1-2 degrees, and she's going to be, starting to work with Virgo at the same time, traveling along the same path that Mercury has gone across, the Sun has gone across during this eclipse window. But she's entering Virgo at the eclipse next week. So she's going to be very active with that new moon solar eclipse at the beginning of Virgo. So she's where that moon was on the 23rd. So I think that's a very pertinent thing to observe and work with. What else was there? Oh, and Jupiter. I think I mentioned Jupiter before. Jupiter is very close to the trine of the full moon of last week. So Jupiter's going from 19 to 21 degrees of Cancer. So if you have things in Cancer, it's really, and this is individual and collective, I think Jupiter's really working with us to expand everything about Cancer, which is home, nurturing, all these kinds of things. And if you've got good aspects with that, then I think that's good. And again, that's trining that moon for last week. It's within about 20 degrees of the sextile to the moon next week. So I mean, it's kind of far, but Jupiter will come up to that point in the next. It's going to approach it. Actually, it doesn't even get there. Jupiter retrogrades on the 25th degree before going backwards. So it really doesn't even get to the 29th degree. But Jupiter really is going to be expanding everyone's perception of home and nurturing. And of course, depending on the aspects and where it's falling in people's charts, I think that's how that's going to play with that. Let's see, Gemini. Is there anything in there I still wanted to get? Oh, okay. So the actual midpoint of the moon, and I did not notice this until today. Right now, the moon is in Gemini, and the midpoint right now of the moon on September 14th is at 21 degrees of Gemini. That's the eclipse midpoint as far as the moon placement. Let me see. Cancer, Leo. These degrees always kind of get me. Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio. Okay, so in Gemini, this eclipse midpoint is quincunxing the 22nd degree of Scorpio, I think. Yes, because it's Scorpio-Taurus axis. So that's going to be kind of challenging energy for all of this, all the things in Scorpio at 22 regards to, darker sexual energies, baggage that needs to get cleared out that people have been carrying, and also lies, deceit, all that stuff. I think anything with politics is going to really get kind of lit up because of the moon, the midpoint of the moon. And again, most astrologers would not probably look at this as an aspect per se, but it is an aspect. And because the moon is here in Gemini, Gemini is the twin, Gemini is the other, the aspect of who we are internally. But it represents, the two, and so I think it's partnering in its own way. So I think there's a lot that's going to be lit up with this moon, which is the emotional body that's quincunxing in Scorpio. And I don't know what that'll look like. We'll just have to see what plays out in the news. Also, transiting just 2 degrees away from this, of course, the moon just crossed it, just like earlier today, with Psyche. Psyche is a higher vibrational of Venus, who we love, how we love. But it really is, I think, very workable as far as our psyche. Our psyche is developed over our years, from childhood into adulthood into, maturity as we mature through age, not just physical age progression of the body, but also our perception of reality and how we consciously create in the world. And for the moon last week, Psyche was 2 degrees from the square to that full moon lunar eclipse. So it was really working, challenging aspect-wise with our psyches in Gemini. And next week, Psyche is going to be at 20 degrees of Gemini. It's 9 degrees away from the next eclipse as far as the square. So it was more, Psyche was working with the last eclipse more as a square than it will be the next one. But it is sitting here close to the actual moon placement. Psyche has been very just sitting with this moon as the moon crossed it. And so I think that's very pertinent. The other thing I noticed when I actually looked at this eclipse midpoint, and I did not have it charted, at 22 degrees, it's sitting on my progressed Venus at 22:29, and my progressed Sun at 22:58, and Mars is only 28:49. I'm sorry, 25, and it's on the fixed star Ganesha. Ganesha is really that's the other big thing I wanted to talk about with this. So, there's my Ganesha thing I had pulled up. Where are you hiding? It's not there, not there, not there. Where'd you go? I've got so many tabs open on this computer. Okay, here we go. So, I think this is very appropriate for this moment. Ganesha, the fixed star in the Hindu world, is really about balance, new beginnings. It's at 23:48, and the eclipse moon right now is transiting over all this. It's transiting over my personal planets, which are all on this moon, Ganesha, which is right here in Gemini. And I didn't mean to close that one down. If I click on the wrong thing, it's going. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry. So in astrology, Ganesha symbolizes wisdom, overcoming challenges, and removing obstacles. He's often worshipped in Vedic astrology as a remedy to balance energies and reduce planetary afflictions, providing clarity of thought. Ganesha is also regarded as the ruler of Ketu, associated with spiritual liberation and karmic lessons. His presence in astrological context acts as a guiding force, illuminating the path for individuals. The name Ganesha itself means Lord of the people, reflecting his role in helping to remove blocks and bring clarity. So that's a pretty big order for Ganesha. The spring god, he's the supreme god of Ganapatya. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff you can go in and Google about Ganesha, but the fact that this little eclipse midpoint is on the Ganesha fixed star, I think is a big deal, and I think it's giving us all the capacity to really go in and gain inner wisdom. And I mean, the fact that the moon is sitting right there at the star, so sit with that, see how that feels with you, and take that one in. So Uranus is said, and we already talked about that. Gemini. I'm going backwards to the zodiac in case you hadn't figured that out. There's really nothing in Taurus. The sextile of the full moon is at 15 on the Taurus world point. And then next week, the trine to the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo is at 29 degrees at the end of Taurus. So anything that you have at the end of Taurus is workable energy. Eros is coming through between 10 and 12 degrees, approaching that world point a bit. But Eros is, of course, more male, usually more sexual expression, but it's creative energy. Everyone has it, depending on how it's playing out for you. So Aries really is a highly working energy in this eclipse. And again, when you go read the email that I sent, that this woman wrote some stuff about, I mean, it's some really powerful stuff in the way that she was relating and sharing about what was happening in Aries. The big thing is the fact that Chiron is in Aries. Chiron and Eris being together, also the Oki-Rho Centaur, and Priapus. Most astrologers do not talk about these points, but Priapus is kind of, it's not really an exact opposite of Lilith, but Priapus is kind of the opposite of Lilith, but he really represents the divine feminine in highest expression. Divine masculine, because he is the perigee of the moon path, which is the closest point of the moon path to the earth. But Lilith is the divine feminine, is the opposite, and of course the oscillation of that's all over the map. But Priapus is sitting here on top of Chiron and Oki-Rho and Eris. So Eris, of course, is of discord. These are the later degrees, 24 to 26 degrees of Aries, and of course that's the I am presence. We're really working to really heal the I am presence, and Priapus is sitting right on top of Chiron at this midpoint. Ceres is coming up to Selassie. We'll meet up with Selassie exact on the eclipse next week. Ceres, of course, it's healing energy, nurturing energy. Selassie is more, I think, cosmic awareness. I forget all the mythology with some of these things. Pam Gregory's awesome about putting these things out. My mind's got so much going through it right now, it's hard for me to recall. But the fact that, Ceres is going back through in the middle of Aries. I mean, Selassie is about 11 degrees, and Ceres is starting at 13, but it will be at 11 meeting with Selassie next week. So that's really good positive energy. Of course, they're both retrograde, so it's more review work. And of course, Chiron, Okiro, and Eris are all retrograde too. So all this is reworking energy. As far as their aspects to the moon, Ceres is in attendance to the semi-sextile to the full moon lunar eclipse last week. So it's not really, it's like little micro work energy. And then the quincunx next week, Priapus is sitting on it. And again, all energy is workable energy. So that's kind of like the pass through the zodiac with all of this. The moon was going across the end of Taurus just a couple of days ago. So it went across that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction point from a year and a half ago. Jupiter and Uranus, it's like that expansive, shocking, revelatory kind of energy. So if you had anything there, this would have helped light it all up. The moon was on Algol 2 days ago. If anybody's got anything on Algol, and of course this is in the middle of the eclipse window, so I think there could be some aspects to that. I guess those are the biggest points I think I really wanted to make with regards to this eclipse window. But especially in Scorpio. I mean, the fact that the 3-eye Atlas comet path is in the middle of Scorpio, it's in the middle of the oscillating Lilith pathway. I think all of this is taking us into our core. And it's assisting us in clearing out anything we don't need anymore, and just really taking us to our own level of cosmic awareness that we each have the capacity to get to. Again, if there's 8 billion people on the planet, everyone is all over the map. There's just no telling, where everyone is at. Everyone is in individual creation space. So the new creations are going to be just depending on where people are in the soul evolution. And you do have enough people out there writing some amazing things that that you can really use as jumping off points, to go into your own self, your own journey, your own healing capacities and things. So I hope that's been helpful for you. Some of it I know I've talked about before, but there were a few things I think that got brought up for this one that I don't think I saw the last time. Every time I look at the sky through this new spreadsheet, I see something completely different. There's so much going on in the sky, and the fact that I have tracked like 70 or 80 planets, dwarf planets, centaurs, points, hypothetical points. There's a lot going on in the sky, and it's only going to get busier, especially for Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius for the rest of the year, especially over the next couple of months, as 3-eye Atlas goes backwards and crosses over into Libra. And of course that'll be in the middle of October, and it basically that's when all the personal planets are going to come in contact with this comet, which is just right. It starts after we have this next new moon solar eclipse in Virgo next week. Then Atlas will start being aspected by all the personal planets. Mars first, then Mercury, then the Sun, and then Venus, all within a week time, or within a month's time. And I think that's going to be when we really get activated on a personal level, because the personal planets do represent us personally. And the fact that Haumea is there, attending birth. The Tesla asteroid is going to come through. Clotho of Fate, Atropos of Fate. You got two fates. And then in the later part, that third week of October, Atlas is going to be sextile the galactic center. That's a very workable energy. So that'll be the first real workable energy that we've had to Atlas. The next challenging big energy for Atlas will be, let me see, it's conjunct the supergalactic center on November the 19th. It will be square the galactic center on November the 27th. So I think that's going to be a lot of challenging energy, and that's actually going to be in Virgo. It doesn't have to be a bad energy. It just means it's going to be more workable energy. And the Gregory asteroid is sitting right there at the square to the galactic center. So it'll be interesting to see what Pam Gregory's perception of the world. Oh, not to be left out, my name's coming up on it. The John asteroid's coming up with Lachesis of Fate. Okay, well, that's going to be fun. So it's going to be square the galactic center. And then by the time we get to the end of the year, actually literally the last day of the year, the 31st, on the 27th, it crosses from Virgo back into Leo, which is trining the galactic center. So this Atlas cosmic interstellar thing is really going to, I think, give us the greatest awareness going into the new year. So I think that's something I think that we can have to look forward to. I'm trying to remember if it's here long enough to go into opposition. I don't think, actually it may. It quincunxes the galactic center. Oh, yeah, that's what it does. It quincunxes the galactic center in Cancer on the 30th of January next year before it changes path and sharply comes down toward a direct station. Oh, that's right. It only gets to 13 degrees of Cancer in Sirius. So it never opposes the galactic center. It makes all the other aspects, but it never opposes it. But it does. Oh, I forgot this. Oh, yeah. It basically leaves right after the second full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on March the 3rd. It stays stationary at that 13 degrees right there at the Sirius star, and it's gone around March the 12th, according to a couple of these other people, right as Jupiter stations direct. So it's really going to be interesting to see how that works. And I think that's all very interesting, too, because that's around when the new beginnings really start to take off with that eclipse series, because that will also be the time where Saturn and Neptune have finally met back up in Aries, if I remember right. Yeah. Saturn enters Aries on the 13th of February, just 4 days before the first it's spring eclipse, but it's really February, so it's technically a winter eclipse. And then they conjunct each other, Saturn and Neptune, on the 20th. And that's really, I think, when we meet up and give structure to the dream. And the fact that that's in the eclipse window. It's 4 days into the eclipse window. And then we'll have the middle point of all that, and Saturn and Neptune are really still sitting on each other. So, yeah. But we'll talk about all that another time. Okay. Well, I hope that has given you all a little basis and framework for what we're doing and how to work with it. I do not think it has to be a doom and gloom thing. I mean, some people are just writing it's going to be just the most awful thing, but it depends on where you are. I mean, if you're stuck in doom gloom, that's what you're going to have and I think create. But the fact, that Neptune is still in Aries, right now, even at 0 degrees, this is coming up next week, we're still creating the new dream even though it's retrograde. But we're just kind of backtracking in what we've already created in the new dream. But again, you've got the positive and negative sides to this, like with everything else. You've got the great new illusions, we're illusory, but we're also, working with the delusion of Neptune. And that's one reason it has to go back into Pisces for the final hit with Saturn to really break apart everything. And again, I mean, it's not going to get broken apart and be into the new dream until the next eclipse series in 6 months. So for those of you that don't have patience, you'll learn patience in the next 6 months. But also think, too, if you have friends and family, anything going on in the world that you see, again, I still call this a bardo state. It's that part where we have to go face. It's like facing God, and I don't really hear a lot of other astrologers writing it in that way. Maybe I'm writing it in an extreme way, but it's really what Spirit gives me. And when you look at, if you're taken into the totality of all humans, 8 billion, how many ever, if you've never sat into that and felt in the capacity of the vast differences in the human progression, soul progression, and the different things humans are experiencing, especially all over the world, in different countries and different cultures and there's so many different things projected onto us as humans all around this little blue ball. So we can never make a blanket statement and say, oh, we're all going through this. Yes and no. Some people are creating wonderful realities already, even in the midst of all the trauma and drama. Some people are in some of the most awful crap shows that they could have ever dreamed, and yet they're also there because there is no separation. If you're experiencing something, that's your energy. It's yours. I don't care whatever's in our lives. I mean, this goes for me. If something's in my life, I co-created it, good, bad, or ugly. I mean, right now, my life is pretty good. I cannot complain. I really can't. And you don't want to complain because all it's going to do is bring more things for you to complain about. If you want to focus on something great, go create that great. It doesn't mean that Spirit won't, take you on a deeper soul progression and take you into a deeper initiation for soul growth, as far as going into the vast mansions of superconsciousness. I mean, they call them all sorts of things depending on what you're reading, but I mean, the more you go into this and the deeper you work with stuff, you just have the greater capacity to go into greater frequency. The more frequencies you take on, the more perception of reality you have, the less you're going to judge anything you see in the outer world of form. If you're in any type of judgment, I invite you to go in and consider releasing it. Whether you do that is up to you. Hold and carry only what you need. Let go of anything else, because what we're doing, it's not here to carry our baggage or anybody else's baggage. We're releasing baggage, any and all baggage, individually and collectively. So just sit with that meditation, especially in this 0 point. This whole eclipse portal really is about a release. Again, it's still new beginnings. There's always a new beginning every nanosecond of the moment you're in it. And you may be at a point where you've released so much you don't really feel like there's a lot more to release. So at that point, go into the next level, because there's always something to release. It may just be the way that your mind gets brought into something that doesn't serve you anymore. Or it may be somebody else's problem, somebody else's awareness. You don't have to worry about anybody else. There is no worry. It's not our place to ever worry about where someone else is or is not. If you're assisting someone and attending, only attend to the point necessary. Otherwise, that's part of their spiritual work. That's what they came here to do. And let them do that. Just let everyone do what they need to do. So, okay. On that note, I think I have covered everything that Spirit is indicating to me. We're about an hour and a half into it. That's pretty good, I think. Okay, so if you are not in your comfy zones, if you're not in your bed laid out, if you're not in a comfy chair, recliner with everything in the recline position to lay and receive deep healing, then get yourself in a place to receive that. That's what I'm going to do. Got to get some water, though. So yeah, I know it's a difficult time with everything going on out there. The Charlie Kirk world, and there's always something happening. And the main thing for every single one of us, try so hard not to get caught up into anyone's trauma drama. Yes, it's awful what happened. And there are very deep dynamics on why it happened, the timing of why it happened. All of it is designed to keep the collective in a sense of despair, to keep the collective in lower vibrational frequency. And again, no one is ever in anything that the soul did not agree to. And I think that's the hardest part for everyone to know. And you also have to look at the totality of what someone created for their own life path. And I'm not even going to remotely attempt to go into Charlie Kirk's life path and why he did this and why he did that, because it's not about a Charlie Kirk, really. It's about the way we perceive what's being presented out into the field. And that, again, is his journey. His soul came here to do what it's doing, just like Donald Trump's doing what he came to do, Putin's doing what Angela Merkel. I mean, pick any of them. And I'm not going to go into the vastness of where they sold their souls to the dark and how they ended up going through deep distortion patterns and worked to entrap humanity into some really dark, nasty things. And again, all of that's the story. You don't need the story. and quite frankly, the story doesn't exist. It only exists because a few people in control of things have projected it, a value on the story to exist in a certain way. It's called a narrative. And they write the narrative for enslavement. You may not feel enslaved physically, but if your mind is constantly pulled into all that trauma drama, then your mind is enslaved to it. Just consider that. It's not for me to put that as a projection onto you, but I invite you to go inquire. Let's put it that way. That's the higher function of communication. Go and inquire yourself. Do you feel like if your mind is constantly pulled into all of the trauma dramas of the world, do you have dominion over your own thoughts? And this really is where we're being invited to go to, is taking over complete dominion of our mind, what we allow into our mind, what we allow people to project onto us, and how we respond. And again, you can heartfully respond to something you see in the world without being in a deep, visceral reaction. Most people are in deep reaction to what they're seeing in the world right now, all of it. In true mastery, I don't feel like we're ever in a reaction to anything. Because if you're in reaction, then you're giving your own capacity and awareness over to something or someone outside of yourself. And to me, that feels false. You have to go into your own heart and ask what's true for you. And you may say, well, why is that important? Well, it's kind of the point of the whole thing, is it not? Awakening. When you awaken internally so completely and so deeply, everything in the world could be imploding around you, and yet you are still very deeply grounded here with presence, with the eternal isness, and the whole world could burn around you. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. It certainly would be a master doctorate class in enlightenment. And I'm certainly not wishing that into the world. Oh, my God. I don't know how far we're going to have to go down this rabbit hole for people to wake up. But people are very deeply asleep, especially in the United States. We'll see how that works out. So just see where your soul takes you, and if you're called to go act out with something heartfully as a heartful response. And again, this needs major clarification, and sit in this before your mind wants to poo-poo that as a reflection. If you're in any kind of reaction, even to what I'm saying, anything that's been pointed out or being invited for inquiry, go sit into whatever it is you're reacting to, because nothing is being communicated to create a reaction per se. Everything is just being presented as potential wisdom. If it gives you wisdom of the moment and it stands forth with some truth, then gain it, learn from it, work with it, what have you. If it doesn't, put it in the trash. It's like everything else in a year and a half of calls. This basically is a year and a half. So this is the completion of 4 Eclipse series. We started in March of last year. So we've had 2 spring ones, and now this is the second of the fall eclipses. We've had 4 complete eclipse series coming up next week. Wow. Cool. Okay, so on that note, so just do a scan. Just go into presence with yourself and scan your body, scan the entirety of your existence, scan your etheric field, scan who are you as just pure presence. So we basically have 9 attending. 9 is completion. So it's really quite perfect. And thank you all for coming. I'm so grateful, especially for a last-minute call. Okay. And again, we're just going into 0 points with all of this. In the alpha and omega point between eclipses, what else do you want to consciously eclipse from your life? Maybe there's large things you want to to just have go away. If there's something that's supposed to leave you, is it not better to, or easier, to make a conscious choice to release things, people, places, things, what have you, thoughts? Or is it more difficult to, or is it easier just for spirit through some set of circumstance to come along and take something out for you? Either to have a car that you no longer want or need just totally break down, disintegrate, and catch on fire, and you have to get rid of it. Or a home, you have to change a home, and so you have a fire, you have a tree fall into your home, and you create an external circumstance that creates it creates movement because you're ignoring the signs of, oh, I need to do this. At what point do we not make a conscious choice for shifting for our own soul growth and evolution? And at what point do we just allow Spirit to put us in circumstances that force change? Sometimes it's hard to know which way to go with things. So use this time to really go in and ask the truth. If there's something you've been wanting to make a change in, just ask Spirit to show you the next slided step. And honor that these eclipses really are more releasing, but this releasing is going to lead to the beginnings. And really, in truth, every nanosecond is releasing a new beginnings. Constant. What is it that you're wanting to birth into the world? Do you know what you want to birth into the world? If you don't, that's okay. Just attend the releasing. You could be just like I am, and you're on the precipice of putting out a new creation and sharing it with the world. And you're sitting in the divine timing. You could be massaging out the last and final parts before presentation into the world. That's part of the birthing process. It's not on a timetable. There's my silence. So let's invite in another level of this awareness that we have not done yet. Let's just put an invitation to this interstellar three-eyed comet of Atlas and ask for absolute divine and complete protection. But if there's something that wants to be known or birthed through a universal awareness beyond our solar system, if there's something that this Atlas comet is awakening within us, let's just be proactive and work with it and ask perhaps that Spirit work with us and the energy to bring awareness to whatever it is, cosmic interstellar awareness that wants to come forth. So let's go into that. Or any other place that your soul is drawn to go into.